yeah, last weekend was Ludum Dare, and this team made a game called Constance. So, welcome.
So before running the game, I'm going to explain the premise a little bit. The theme of Ludum Dare 46 was keep it alive. So naturally, the first reaction is to go straight to necromancy and keeping things alive but dead at the same time. So eventually we came up with an idea of where you have a jilted lover, but the jiltedness comes from the lover's partner dying, and you trying to tap into the dark arts to resurrect them. So immediately we knew we were going into like fuck up territory. So we just winged a lot of stuff, then came up with an interesting combination of visuals, narrative style, and gameplay to reflect the lover's plight in this situation. So what you have to do as the player is to collect corpses from plague-ridden London and stitch together your former love from the bits of other people. So let's get right to it.
My sweet Constance, have your tears run out at last?
There must be something they can do. Surely. Some medicine, anything.
Not for me. Just pray for me. Keep my remembrance. Love me. And you will keep me alive. Always.
I promise, Henry.
Good thing. And then you have to get a corpse and then piece together your former husband. It's basically a multi-level platformer. And you can hide in things, and you can also change levels. Let's see. And you can also inspect corpses.
These bodies.
It's not the bodies that will make me whole, my love. It is.
And you have to avoid the people.
Always you.
Yeah, so I got caught.
Wow, that's a new one.
It's obviously a little bit buggy because it's a gen game, but yeah, this is the basic premise, I guess. Would you like to see the surgery part as well?
Yeah.
Okay, then
body first.
let me just try to suck less.
These bodies.
It's not the bodies that will make me whole, my love. It is you. It was always you.
It's fully voice acted, of course, thanks to Jonathan and Katie and others. Just casually, you know.
Nothing to see here, just a dead body.
Yeah, the behavior is a little bit random, so it's pretty difficult.
So he's asleep.
So that gave me the time to just, do the deed.
There's also a cane eater things like this.
Yeah.
Your hair always carried the scent of patchouli, even in the middle of the night. That was made just to smell it.
So now we got a hint from our narrator that the hair is the key, so we're just gonna slice this open and transplant. But you can just cut this up anyway. So we're just gonna leave the pants on. And then you have to do this for 5 times to completely transplant the body. And yeah, that's the game. I'll close this, so who wants to talk about...
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to deeply apologise for the sound effect of cutting off limbs. It's horrifying.
Make it.
I'm here. I have 2 tracks that were the opening and the finale. You heard the opening. I'll play it again. I just want to talk about it a little bit. The main thing I wanted to tackle here was like the emotional setup. So because our two lovely voice actors did such a great job, I didn't really want to set up anything. So the first thing you hear in the music is pretty emotionally neutral, and then they start talking, and then it gets sad. This is what I came up with. It also has the voice acting in the background.
My sweet Constance, have your tears run out at last?
There must be something they can do. Surely. Some medicine, anything.
Not for me. Just pray for me. Keep my remembrance. Love me. And you will keep me alive. Always.
I promise, Henry.
And for the finale, I wanted to do the opposite, basically. I wanted to have a really strong emotional setup where, because at the end, you basically revive the guy, and I wanted it to be like a happy moment to start with, like, oh, he's awake, he's alive again. And then for the semi-twisted bit to just completely shut you down. And this is that.
It's like a Disney movie.
Henry? My dearest Henry, you're awake. Say something. Please.
Constance, what have you done?
Yeah, Constance did a very, very bad thing. Shame on you. All right, that's all I had to show.
Okay, so hi. I'm gonna talk about the environments. I did mostly the environments, and when I was done with that, I also did the opening. The quality isn't that great because it's scaled up, but I had a big plan for it. But at that time, I was already losing my energy towards the end of the game jam, so I settled with that. And just a simple candle flicker, and I looked up old family photos and just copied the pose of the characters. Fortunately, I forgot to put that as reference. So what I wanted to talk about is my process, especially since it's a game jam game. My process is essentially stealing, because we have little time, and I haven't done pixel art in a while, so I was a bit unfamiliar again with the process and everything. So I did what any artist would do and steal like one. So a lot of people would think this is shameful, but you know, it's just part of the process. As long as you make it your own and you credit the appropriate people. So on the right, I set up like a mood board, which we had Bloodborne and Vampire, and then a bunch of pixel art of the town that I can copy the style. Like, it's easier to look at someone else's interpretation of an old building and then follow that, use that as a base, then make your own. Then on the right, the team in Vampire released a bunch of concept art for like their environments and such. So I'm like, thanks guys, pre-research. So what I did was I just almost exactly copied, or I tried my best to copy the two buildings you see over there. So the good thing about not being a very good copier is when you copy it, it becomes your own. So it's not technically stealing. So you can see the building on the left is the one. The bottom is referencing the one above. Oops, I think I got the wrong one. Whatever. My original idea was to mix and match the bottom of the buildings so we can have variations, but we never got the system ready in time. But I think it still is varied enough. For the color palette, I grabbed this picture from Pinterest, and then later I was informed where this picture came from. It's from a game called Inmost. So I just color picked the tones from the picture instead of trying to make my own. So we have here just a time lapse of the process. I can't speed it up, can I? Here. So I started out with a basic sketch. I used Procreate on the iPad, which is not exactly used for pixel art, but if you reduce the resolution and just find a hard brush, a pixel art brush, it'll work. It's not the best for accurate pixel art, but when I do pixel art, it's very loose and sketchy. So that's why I tend to use that. So I started out with the base, and since Procreate has a symmetry tool, it was rather quick to create the facade and everything. And then I just started. The original design of the levels were supposed to be 3 lanes. So this is the street lane, and I think the the top lane was supposed to be the buildings, but we decided to make that the other street, a different street. So yeah, as I was doing this, I had the picture of my reference next to me, and then started copying it. And then I just kept color picking from the picture on the right, just to save me some time. Let's move up a bit. Oopsies, that's too much. Oh no, it's all going wrong. Let's see. So yeah, for variation, I just took the same picture and then removed the bottom floor and then started making another facade. The first one took some time because I was still getting used to the process, but by the second time, I was getting more familiar with what colors to use and what shapes and everything. So the next building was a lot faster. And then, let's speed it up again. Then I just changed the second floor to have like a new window. And then initially we had alleyways, so to just add breaks into the level. The floor was made in Photoshop because for tileable surfaces, that's when I want to use a mouse and be more accurate. But for everything else, I was just going nuts and not being a true pixel artist. So that's basically this is the mock I used for reference. So that's what it's supposed to look like. Then we decided to change it to what you see closer to the game. Then I went in and tried to change the camera. If you can look on the left side, to show how much of the level the actual in-game camera would see. And that's it. That's basically my process for the environment.
Okay, yeah. So, from programming perspective for the part I did, the most challenging parts was in trying to develop a system that's with this limited set of actions we can do: walking left, walking right, dragging the body, and leaving the body, and hiding. This was basically all game mechanics. And the most challenging part was to get something done that still is some kind interesting and still has some kind of traction. Especially you don't see how much the NPC characters see so far, so you need to sense it, feel it. This makes it a little bit hacky, of course. But hey, it's a game jam game, and we have other mechanics in it as well. You can enter the buildings, and to be fair, I have to say that if you want to play the game and reach the last levels, you really have to figure out how the mechanics works and to abuse it to the max. Yeah, so that's it for my part.
Oh yeah, I just did the surgery room and all of the body parts and everything. Also, I did all of the characters and their animations. And because I did, like I usually do, kind of like a crisp, more less painterly and more like pixel arty kind of art for games, then I decided that I should change my style to fit everything else. Like the characters were still the same, because it's okay if you have characters that are like more crisp and clear, like in old cartoons they do. But the backgrounds I changed a bit, and also the main problem I had was that at first when I started drawing the bodies, dead bodies, then they were too realistic and they were too creepy and it felt too real, and we didn't want to go with this kind of style, so we made it more cartoony, and I scaled down the resolution as well, not to go into too much detail. So at first we had a big problem with this being something that maybe nobody would ever want to play to this being kind of palatable.
You guys want me to show it? I think I can send it over to the stream.
You could.
Yeah.
I mean,
Might as well give everyone 9 minutes.
Yes.
So keep talking while I send it over.
Yeah, the first iteration of the body that you were supposed to cut up was, at first it was female, and the first mock-up that Leene did was a literal nightmare fuel. So, yeah, you'll see soon enough.
Yeah, you can talk about this.
Yeah, meanwhile, I can talk about the coding a little bit. There was 3 coders on the team. It was Thomas, me, and Fraser. And then we all had our different subsystems to work with. I did mostly character movement. There it is. So first time I saw that, I was immediately creeped out. Because for me, it's very high fidelity.
And then that's when we decided maybe we shouldn't make a game about someone murdering people and
stitching them,
cutting up female bodies. I was like, oh, this got weird.
Yeah, and so we went with just stealing the bodies
instead of actual murder.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the design changed a little bit, and I just did mostly systems in the background. And Fraser was handling a lot of the surgery logic and also putting all of the environment art together. He was doing a lot of tech art stuff with shaders and with layering so that everything would look would have a very nice presentation to it. And that's the game. Questions?
Should I call the police? Does this take place in the Death and Taxes universe?
No.
No.
Shame. You find Constance.
Death would have killed her almost immediately.
Yeah.
Where do all the bodies come from? Like, why are there dead bodies everywhere?
It's the plague.
Yeah. It's
The
the
time
bubonic
of the-
plague of the 14th century. Help.
19th. I think 19th we decided.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe there were so many bubonic
1860
plagues.
1860 or something.
This is why we needed Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was more
Jonathan created
accurate.
a lot of the world and the narrative behind it and the design and how everything ties together. So unfortunately, that's where we suck. Yeah. Yes.
Being such a large.
So the question was, does having a large team affect the communication within the team in a game jam? And the answer is yes, it does. The more people you add to the team, the more overhead you have. So the more time is spent on organizational discussions and how to do things. But if it's played out right, then you can still achieve more than with having less people. I think in our case we managed to hit a certain balance. For us, the turning point, I think, was when we decided to change the design a little bit to be less gruesome and a little bit more ethical and a little bit less tropey. And Adam onboarded Jonathan as well. So we had we took some steps to unify ourselves, and then the last days or the second half of the game jam went mostly without issues, where we could just work in peace and everybody knew what they were doing. But it definitely affected.
I think it also helped that we basically had separate departments. Like me and Lena were the art team, and then I was environment. She did UI and characters. We had music. We had a writer, and then 3 programmers that just so happened to have perfect splits in the responsibilities. So I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, having the distinction to set tasks for each other so that everybody can work uninhibited, with everybody else at the same time is really
The
important.
hardest parts are when everybody starts talking about the overall design and everybody pitches in, and this is what will take a bit more time. This kind of thing.
There was a funny moment with Fraser with our technical artist, because we had all of us had different interpretations of how the world would look like. So I was drawing my version, and then he thought completely different. So when he implemented it, it was different. So that was one area where I think if we took a bit more time to talk about the pre-production, then it would have been clear for everyone. But it still worked out.
Yeah.
We just had to adapt.
Overcome.
So, yeah.
Any more questions?
Yes, we're done.
Great, thank you. Woohoo.
Yeah.
Play our game. It's on the page.